So by the time I was 14, there was Jay Strack was a great crusader for Christ. Came to Dothan, I think Ripview Stadium, and he that night, my friend, the same one that been telling me I need to get saved the whole time, who was not himself a Christian, but nevertheless God used him to draw me there. I got there, and it was like like they had like the pizza and everything, and most everybody there was geared towards that. But I had one intent. I wanted to understand the gospel. I wanted to know what it meant to be saved. And I remember him preaching the gospel, and I remember him just being real expressive and maybe explosive. And I remember he talking about these teenagers. This is the only thing I remember. It's all kind of vague, but I do remember him talking about there was a car wreck with some teenagers who had left a revival and they all died, and him saying that it could be you, thinking about your life. And so quite naturally I did, and I had come there just for that bread. That's something I really wanted, and God had drew me there. And so he had an altar called. I remember Jay Strack just led us through the sinner's prayer. And I remember it was not just a resuscitation of words for me. I understood that I was receiving a gift and that my life would be completely changed. Obviously, I developed a prayer life. That's one of the first things that happened. I began to know how to talk to God. As those kinds of things before I became a Christian. But I remember it being more relational even as a teenager. I can remember I had quiet time. I would meet with the Lord 3 times a day. It was like something I had to do. I remember getting up before I went to school, when I got out of school, and when I went out and shot ball or whatever, and I came back. It was our time. That's something I never experienced before, a relationship with Jesus. It was like a connection, something I had to do. And I remember being able to express my heart to him. Whatever I was struggling with, if the kids at school were picking at me, or I felt inadequate, or how you go through those teenage stages, feeling insecure with yourself. I can remember just feeling him embracing me, like a real person, which he is real, and even as a teenager, being able to feel that realness, like he was there with me, comforting me, listening to me.
Many of you know Robert Brooks was recently diagnosed with acute leukemia. What has this diagnosis meant to him? How has it changed his perspective on life, and how does God fit into the equation? Is Robert still a man of faith? You decide.
I'm not the man I was a month ago before I got diagnosed with leukemia. When it happened, it's like one of those things that came out of the blue. One of the things that really happened to me during this experience was I experienced God in a different way. I experienced him in a way that I guess I never experienced in health. God became, he was always real to me, but it's like he became even more pronounced to me, and to see him in light of my adversity, in light of the sickness, as a father and as a comforter. It's like the Lord himself would come by my bedside. I remember being in pain, writhing with pain, suffering, and just, it's really been tormented physically and even mental anguish. But it's like sometimes I would not know how I would make it through the night. It was very difficult. But it's like the Lord stood with me, and he would embrace me through the night and say, we're going to make it through the night. I'm not going to walk away. It stripped away all my illusions of independence. Going through life thinking that I, was in control, going through life thinking that I had a plan, that I was paying the bill, I was the one that was doing these things. And again, it's not that I was consciously thinking these things, but on a subconscious level, I'm thinking these things. But I think it's like when I got sick, it's like all that was stripped away. Everything that I thought that I had a grasp of was taken from me. And it was during that time I began to realize that, hey, it was God's grace all along that was sustaining me. Even when I thought I was healthy and doing well, he was the one that was sustaining me. He was the one that was standing with me and holding me up. I had not known that I had been so close to death, within 2 weeks of death, as one oncologist said. But that was grace, and I was hanging on by a thread, not knowing. But I think we go through life not understanding that we are always hanging by that thread. And it's God's grace that protects us and keeps us. And we don't ever know. Most people that go through life blindly, not knowing how close they are to death or tragedy or sickness or whatever it may be, God has not, guess, remove that covering. But for some people, I think through illness, through a major tragedy, through a loss of a child, he removes those scales, and he allows you to see that grace in that thread that you've been hanging by, that you didn't know, you didn't realize it was there. It was always been there. But he is great. He was through leukemia. He was gracious to me to pull back the blinds, and I could see the thread that I've been hanging on all along. You know, just that. But it was just His grace and His great hands that have been holding me up the whole time. I think you have two roads you can go. I think when you face these crises, whether it be sickness or some other type of tragedy, I think you hit a wide road. You have one road that leads to pity, resentment, self-criticism, hatred towards life, and maybe misunderstanding of God. I think there's another road that says dependency upon God, humility, lessons to learn. It's the road less traveled. But I think when we choose to take that road, it transforms us. God has an opportunity to work in us and to do a work that He could not have done, or He would not have done had we not been going through that experience. You know, so and I can actually say I thank God for allowing me to go through this experience. I never thought I'd ever say anything like that, because I did suffer. Now, it has not been a bed of roses, and I still got a long journey to go. But I can actually say, God, thank you for allowing me. You know, I don't believe God brought this upon me, but I know He has worked through it, and He has used it to allow me to mature, to grow, to learn lessons, and to hopefully through this bring Him some honor and glory.